dreams die. Rely on yourself in no way. Believe.
Good morning, everybody. Hopefully, everyone had a good weekend. I hope everyone had a relaxing weekend. Um, I had an interesting weekend, but I can't really divulge how that went down because it'd be hilarious on a whole different scale. Um, quite. Anyhow, um, just know that it was quite funny, and I will never be doing it again. That's for sure. Um, Today's topic, however, will cover something that has been brought to my attention a couple of times via a couple of people, and they asked me to give my 2 cents clarification on it because apparently some who read it are reading a an exact description of a type of people into it. So we are going to address it. Um, the topic of Revelation 2:9 and Revelation 3:9. And so obviously what we have to do first is read it, right? We have to we have to read it. So we're going to read it. Okay. Now, if you remember correctly, a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 4 now, I did tackle the topic of the seven churches. Um and if it was missed, you might want to go back and watch that one, but we'll be covering two of the seven in this breakdown. Now, I've told you before, the isolation of verses is a very unwise thing to do. I always talk about the pretext and what's written before, what's written after, and in what context it was. Um, you never want to just read a verse that you think might prove what you believe. You're trying to see if what you believe weighs against the book. It's not the book confirming what you believe. Is does what you believe actually align with what's in there? Because we can go to the book and find anything we want to fit our view. You see it all the time. We call it cherry picking, right? Um, so we don't want to do that with this verse at all, in the least. Okay, we just don't. So they say it's Revelation 2:9. Okay. Um, so we're in Revelation 2, verse 9. Well, let's go to 8. To the angel of the church in Smyrna, write: These are the words of him who is the first and the last, who died and came to life again. I know your afflictions and your poverty, yet you are rich. I know about the slander of those who say they are Jews and are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan. Do not be afraid of what you are about to suffer. I tell you, the devil will put some of you in prison to test you, and you will suffer persecution for 10 days. Be faithful, even to the point of death, and I will give you life as your victor's crown. Now, I know your poverty and your afflictions, yet you are rich. I know that about the slander of those who say they are Jews and are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan. That's the verse that a particular group harp on. Okay? That's one of the verses that a particular group, not going to mention a name because that could easily get my channel struck. Go figure. Persecuted, I guess. They feel as though that is describing them. Okay, specifically, directly describing them. And um, I want to be clear about the context. To the angel of this church of Smyrna. Um, this has 0, and I don't think I can get a more definite number. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 to do with a race. If you also remember pretty clearly, I had tackled the topic of Jews on this channel. Um, that one came with a whole bunch of backlash because people say, "Oh, I can trace my Jewish heritage all the way back by blood, by blood, by blood." But even when I show people that Scripture says that a true Jew is one who is circumcised of heart, you're still going to harp on your lineage. I don't care about your lineage. I don't care about your bloodline. Because here's the thing. Because the New Testament, the New Covenant, is about the change of heart, that is where he's going to be looking at. It's not how well you can follow rules and regulations. It's not about bloodline. It's about a change of heart. That is the New Covenant. It is no longer about the bloodline. The bloodline was sufficient to bring forth Jesus into the storyline. From that point on, after his death, we are included in a completely different line of thought, which is spirit life. Not blood, spirit. Spirit. It is plain as day. Plain as day. The whole lead up of the Old Testament was to bring forth Christ. Period. Everything that took place, from ceremony to how long something took, to what line did what and who got put into what chains, all of it was an archetype of what the life in the spirit world was supposed to be like. And the ushering of that came in with Jesus, which is why your line as a human is inconsequential. So let's just make that clear first off, right off the top. Okay, right off the top. Because technically, for me, let me not say technically. For me, I don't want to put my value in my blood. I'm putting value in his blood. My blood has a very definite consequence with it, whether I'm a Jew or not. It has a definite consequence with it. I don't want that consequence. And he's given a way out of that consequence. So, for all intents and purposes, those who say they are Jew and are not, he literally spoke about that earlier on when he said a true Jew is one who is circumcised of heart. He covers this exact topic already. This is not about a race. Okay, so we clarified 2. Let's go to 3:9. This is the other one. To the church in Philadelphia, to the angel of the church in Philadelphia, these are the words of him who is holy and true and holds the key of David. What he opens, no one can shut, and what he shuts, no one can open. I know your deeds. See, I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut. I know that you have little strength, yet you have kept my word and have not denied my name. I will make those of the synagogue of Satan, there it is again, who claim to be Jews and are not, but are liars. I will make them come and fall down at your feet and acknowledge that I have loved you. Okay? Now, the group who shall not be named are in the habit of carrying forth a mindset that you ought to do exactly this today, right now, for them. Um, that you ought to fall down at their feet and acknowledge that God loves them. Um, here's the problem. Here's the problem. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say you go do that. It directly says, I will make them come and fall down. It doesn't say go tell them. It doesn't say go beg them, go make them. It never says anything of the sort. I will make them come and fall down. I, God, will make them, those who are the synagogue of Satan, come willingly to fall down at your feet and acknowledge that I have loved you. So let's get that first phase out of the way. Man does not get to go to another and tell him to bow down and acknowledge that God loves him. You know who does that? God. And if God ain't doing it, that ain't for you to do. It's not for you to do. That's not your place. That's not your role. Plain, simple, straightforward. Of course, if those people can't read properly, I can understand that because they don't want to read properly. Because, like I say, they isolate. I will make those of the synagogue of Satan. This is how they harp on. They harp on that. And then who claim to be Jews, they harp on that. But are liars, they harp on that. Then they harp on fall down at your feet and acknowledge that I love you. They don't harp on he will do it. They take it into their own hands and they go out to the street corners and they argue with people and scream epithets at them, call them all kinds of names, berate them, and scoff at them, and then force them physically to lick and clean boots. I don't think that's an acknowledgement of God loving the person. I think that's just acknowledgement of you loving yourself to the point where you think you are God. That has zero to do with this verse whatsoever. Now, if you really want to get nitpicky, let's go to 8. Let's forget 9 for a second because 9 comes after 8. So let's go to 8. I know your deeds. See, I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut. So why are you worried? Why are you worried about your place? Why do you need man's acknowledgement of your place? If he says directly, he says in 8, not a different book, 8, I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut. In other words, nothing is keeping you from that door, maybe except yourself. Okay. I know that you have little strength, and they take this to mean we have no power. Yet you have kept my word and have not denied my name. Yet a lot of them came from a location of denying that said name. You have kept my word and have not denied my name. You see, here's the problem. There are so many of us trying to create for ourselves a bubble, a bubble where if we just do enough, we can persuade God, we can um, manipulate God. We somehow believe that if we can do enough, we can make him act according to what we want. See, that's what the law fools into thinking that you can do. The law can't save you, the law can only bring forth in your mind this whole concept of guilt. That's all it does. The law was there to show you your error, but the law could not remove that error from your life. The law simply was there to reiterate your error, to make sure that you knew about this error. That is what it did. What Jesus came forward to do was to remove all of those pomp and circumstances from your life and create an avenue by which you could become something more. You could then sidestep the flesh because it was no longer your residence. Bloods, bull, and goats, none of that could assuage what was going to happen. But his blood, because he was a perfect human, and humans were the one that transgressed, that was the way out. That was the way out. So when I keep going back to the fact that we are under a new covenant, this is why I say we are under a new covenant. This is why it matters. When he instituted this concept of salvation and freedom from death and a new life, when that was instituted, every single thing that happened in the old, all the law got full stopped, stamped, filed, put away. It was done, which is why he said it's finished. It was all done. The law was culminated, everything was paid for. The fall of Adam was finally ended in that one successful act. It's all done. What we are trying to do is now bring back law into a grace situation because we're not content to have God do the work. We want to feel like we did it all. Hence why you'll have groups that think when he says, I will make those of the synagogue of Satan who claim to be Jews but are not, but are liars, I will make them come down and bow down at your feet. We think, not we as in you and I, but men, um, men want to say, no, 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 I have to make that happen. You don't have to make nothing happen. He literally said he was going to do it. His timing, not mine. So I want to address this. Not true. Only the sacrifice with sin was done. Only the sacrifice for sin. We still have to live a righteous life. So let me ask you, Tracy, can you live a righteous life? Can you live a righteous life? It's a simple question. Please tell me if you can live a righteous life. I will wait to hear. No, 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 no. See, you don't get to say, this is what, now listen carefully to your words, okay? I don't put words in people's mouths, okay? I don't put words in people's mouths. I want to make sure we get this. You said it's not true. Only the sacrifice for sin was done. We still have to live a righteous life. I asked you if you can live a righteous life. You said you attempt to. So you're telling me that you fail at living a righteous life, right? You fail at living a righteous life. So how are you going to be required to live a righteous life? Have to, but yet still you're allowed to fail at that righteous living. Please tell me. This is not a beratement. I'm simply asking a question. If you say you have to, but then you tell me you attempt to, whose life are you supposed to live? Just a quick question. Whose life are you supposed to live? Right? Whose life are you supposed to live? That's my another question, okay? It plays into all the questions that we're talking about, trust me. So whose life are you supposed to live? Let's start there. Okay? I want to know. Whose life are we living? I won't murder, I won't commit adultery, I don't sleep with women. And that's all. That's then you can live a then if that's all you don't have to do, then you live a righteous life, right? If that's the only criteria for not, then I guess you can live a perfect, if not perfect, righteous life. But you tell me you try to. But that's not answering my question. Whose life do you live? Whose life do you live? Because I can answer that for you of whose life we live. The flesh was already crucified. Okay, so here it is. Here's the answer. Okay, in Galatians 2, he says this. I want to make sure I get this right for you. Okay, for through the law I died to the law so that I might live for God. The law required a whole lot of us to do. We had a lot to do under the law. Okay, remember that. The law made you have to do a whole lot. Then he said, I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. I do not set aside the grace of God, for if righteousness could be gained through the law, Christ died for nothing. I don't put words. I don't live my life. When you understand that you don't live your life after you've accepted Christ, you're missing something very vital. The putting to death of the flesh daily becomes automatic when you live in that life. You want to know why he says it's easy? Because it's a matter of shifting your perspective. It is literally a matter of a perspective switch. Okay, so I can say a lot of things are hard to do. When I overanalyze it and I put fear in front of it and I create a big old boogie monster, it could be difficult. But then somebody could walk up and do the exact same thing I've been stressing over and do it with ease. Why? Is their body built different than you? They could have the exact same figure, same build, but they can come and do it right away. No problem. Why? Mindset. Mindset. It's all about where you place your mind, which is why he told you to renew it. It's why he said to renew your minds. Because in the old frame of mind, we keep thinking that we have to do things that are impossible. And because it's impossible, you can't do it, right? Okay. And if you can't do it, then why even try? I can't be perfect. Well, you're right about that. But he's not asking you to be perfect. He's asking you to live a perfect life. Do you get it now? Your perfection is not in what you can do. Your perfection is a location. It's in who you are. Your perfection, you are placed into a perfect life. You are now living Christ's life. If this verse is not a lie, if this verse is not a lie, okay? If it is not a lie, it says this. Ready? Okay. I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by the faith of the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. I do not set aside the grace of God, for it is righteousness. For if righteousness could be gained through the law, Christ died for nothing. I'm no longer living what I want. Why? Because I'm dead. Okay, so how does that square? How does that square with what we are talking about now? If I am not living my life, if it's not me, then there is zero way for me to make anyone come and fall down at my feet and acknowledge that God has loved me. That does not occur. Why doesn't it occur? Because I am not living that life. I am not. Okay. I'm glad you're bringing this up again. If we still have to, but we still have to walk as best as we can to live for Him, keeping His commandments. If you love, you'll keep my commandments. Okay, let's break this down a little bit. I'm glad because it's culminating all the things I've talked about. What can a dead man do? What can a dead man do? You are dead. Remember that, right? You got crucified. The old man died. If the old man is dead and you are raised in Christ, what is your dead man supposed to be doing? The answer is nothing. He doesn't do anything because he's dead. The new life you are living should have automatic reactions to sin. It should have an automatic button that should be all the time firing. Should be firing all the time. You are not going to get closer to heaven, in heaven faster, or in a better position in heaven by how well you do. That's not how you get anything because the life that you should be living ain't yours. There is no flaw to that life. There is no weakness to that life, which is why when you dwell in that life, you find it so much easier to do the things you have to do for God. But however, when you keep your mind saying, you know what? I am fallen. I am fallen. I am fallen. You know what you're going to be, your propensity is going to be? To always look at yourself that way. What happens when if you ever walking like trying to walk on the sidewalk that little that little raise on the side, the lip of the sidewalk, and you're trying to walk on it, and you find this place where you can almost look ahead, but not focus on it, and you walk straighter than if you're looking dead at it, and you realize that you almost step too far one way or the other, and you fall a whole lot more often when you're looking dead down at it, versus you find that one spot where you're looking ahead. You understand that you're on it, but you're not looking and focusing on that. Your feet are taking care of it because it knows where to go just by peripheral, right? You're not focused on it. That's your Christian walk. You understand that you're in this place. You're here. Okay, you're walking. Perfect. Nice. That's what you have to do. You're going to have to do this till you're dead. I don't have to micromanage. Why? Because I, just like with Peter, the water is there. Understand. You know you can't walk on water. Fully get it. Why could he walk on water? Did Peter become Jesus? No. No. Did he become all of a sudden superhuman? No. What he did do was keep his eye on the one that could keep him afloat. He kept his eye on the one person who could keep him from sinking into the water. We, however, we want to believe that somehow we have the great ability to not only not need to look at Jesus, but look at ourselves and think that by doing that, we can get somewhere. And then when we fall off the sidewalk, we say, oh, man, I don't know how that happened. I'm pretty sure you know how that happened. I'm 100% sure you know how that happened because you had a whole lot of precursor signals popping off at you saying that's going to happen if you don't. You got to get your eyes back. You know for a fact, if you're honest with yourself, that you will hear him saying, you're not focused on me. You're not focused on me. You're not focused on me. And weeks before you fall, days before you fall, you know you had been doing something to take your eyes off of Christ's life. If you are honest with yourself, a runner, an athlete, a true athlete, when running, does not keep his head looking down at his feet because he wants to make sure that his foot keeps in touch with the ground. He puts his eyes squarely on the end. That line is what I have to cross, and I have to, in my peripheral, beat everybody else. I'm not looking at my feet because my feet are trained. I'm looking ahead. I put my eyes where it matters to keep me focused. A lot of Christians don't do that no more. They take everything day to day and they take everything moment to moment. And you want to know why that happens? You take your eyes off. You take your eyes off. Again, Tracy, I really want you to get this. When you gave your life, listen to what I said. When you gave your life to be put to death by God, did you not yield everything? You have to yield it more than once if you're dead? Again, I'm going to ask, it's a serious question. When you gave your life to Him, did you hold something back? What else do you have left to yield? What do you have left to yield? What do you have to work with? What is in your hands that you have to yield still? Were you not supposed to give all of it up at the time? Isn't that the criteria? Isn't that like the very basic of the basic? Aren't you supposed to give it all? So what are you still holding on that you need to yield? What are you yielding still? What are you yielding? You're dead. Death is not a process. No, it is not a process. Death is not a process. If you have died, it's complete. Again, listen carefully. Get this, get this. If you want to believe that your death and your walk are separate, that's fine. Believe that. But he never mentions anything of the sort. The only race you're running is the hours left in your life. That's it. That's the race. You spend your life, the rest of it, after giving up, and I mean life in two different ways. The human life that you have, you spend the rest of it focused on Jesus. That's the only commission you have. And he directs everything after that point. You have nothing to yield because you're dead. You're dead. You give up. You give up your wants, yourself. You give it up. When you decide to follow Christ, it's why you give it up. Give it up. Give it up. Do you know walking with your cross is only for other people to realize that you're walking with God, right? Your cross is that you come that people like to call a cross. This is my cross to bear. This is my cross. This is my cross. This is my cross. Life in its entirety will be your cross. But what is the cross? What is the cross? The cross is a symbol of everything dying to the will of God. Everything dying to the will of God. It is seriously a mind switch. You have for years, they've been telling people that to sin is a normalcy for the Christian. I want you to understand what that means. To sin is normal. And you never get to the end of life without that fight. So let me ask you this. What did it mean when it said, shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? Oh, the people say, oh, that's blatant sin. When you're blatantly living in sin, then you didn't get saved. And if you are saved, why is that still a part of your repertoire? Why is it still a part of what you do every day and you accept it as the normal? Why do you accept that as normal? Why are you even content to live like that? Now, people think you're stepping away from the topic. Not, I'm not. I'm not stepping away from the topic. You have kept my word and have not denied my name. How does one do that? How does one do that? And if you're going to put that in a human context, how are you doing that? How many people successfully do that? Okay, let's look at it from a human point. Okay, bloodline. How are you even remotely pulling that off? And if you're not waiting for him to put people at your feet, then you're obviously not following him because he said he was going to do it. Look, I'm not saying stuff that you have to believe. You really don't. Um, you don't. You don't have to believe that the mindset is where the problem lies. You don't have to. You can continue saying that sin is part of your life, that you're a born again sinner. You can say all that stuff. I mean, that's the part of the free will thing, right? I also have free will to give up my will. If it my free will is so free that I have the option to give up my will completely, give it all up. And since it's linked to my life and I'm dead, it should be a no-brainer. Now, do you remember also when Paul was talking about him not being able to do and what he wants to do he can't do, and remember all that? You remember all that? But let's read that specifically, okay? Because I know someone's going to go there. So, but what about? I do not understand what I do, for what I want to do, I do not do, but what I hate to do, I do. And if I do what I do not want to do, I agree that the law is good. Listen carefully, okay? Listen to what Paul actually says. Like I said, the Bible is very straightforward. As it is no longer I myself who do it, but it is sin living in me. Fair enough, right? Pretty straightforward. For I know that good itself does not dwell in me, that is, in my sinful nature. For I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. For I do not do the good I want to do, but the evil I do not want to do, this I keep on doing. Now, if I do not, listen, if I do what I do not want to do, it is no longer I who do it, but sin that lives in me that does it. This we're in 20 now, okay? 21. So I find this law, listen carefully, I find this law at work. Although I want to do good, evil is right there with me. For in my inner being I delight in God's law, but I see another law in work at me, waging war against the law of my mind, again that word, and making me a prisoner to the law of sin at work within me. Listen carefully to what he says. What a wretched man I am. Who will rescue me from this body that is subject to death? Thanks be to God who delivers me through Jesus Christ our Lord. So then, I myself in my mind am a slave to God's law, but in my sinful nature, a slave to the law of sin. Now, where does he ask you to live? Where does he ask you to live? He directly asks you to live in the spirit of Jesus. He directly tells you that. If you want to keep your mind on the law of the sinful nature, that is exactly where you will continue to act in. that is exactly where you'll continue to act in. It is a mind. No one is saying that you're not in the flesh anymore, you're not here on earth. Everything will have an effect upon you. The difference is, whose life are you going to live to handle what life affects upon you? Mindset. The same way, looking at Revelations 3:9, I will come, I will make them come and fall down at your feet and acknowledge that I have loved you. Since you have kept my command and endured patiently, they don't read 10. I will also keep you from the hour of trial that is going to come upon the whole world to test its inhabitants of the earth. Why don't they read 8 and 10? Because 8 gives you an exact location of who, and 10 will give you an exact location of what happens as a result. But you can't have 8 and 9 when your mindset is that I'm going to make this happen. I have to go out and be a militant person to make this happen, because if I don't do it, it won't happen. He's calling me to be this and that. No, he's calling you to let him do what he's got to do. He said, I have a door put before you. You didn't make the door. I put the door. Ain't nobody else going to close it. When it's time for you to step through it, you're going to do it. I will make those of the synagogue of Satan who claim to be Jews but are liars. I will make them come and fall down. Not you. Not you want. Not your activity. Not you forcing people. He, in his time, will make people do it. So until God does something like that, we aren't supposed to be trying to do nothing. Our focus ought to be on living a godly life, which is what? Living the life that he placed in and us in, which is Jesus Christ's life. Plain and simple. It is not rocket science. It is not brain surgery. This is kindergarten level understanding of that verse. He, 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 not me, he, not me, he. Not a group, him. Not a church, him. The verses I read were in Revelations 2:9, 3:9, Romans 7, and Galatians 2:20. Okay? The church today has made everything about us. God made everything about him. You realize that? The church has made everything about us, and God made everything about him. Everything reflects him. Everything embodies him. Everything represents him. Everything. Everything on earth only has one purpose, and that's to glorify God. Period. To prove God. Period. To make people aware of God. Period. This has nothing to do with you. The sooner you realize your place before the ever living God, you will understand that you are not some big fish he's trying to land. He is the big fish. You will realize that you are not the goal, he is. You will realize you're not the prize, He is. I don't want to become so big and full of myself that I consider myself something that God needs in order to pull what He needs to pull off. He will use me, and I could either be compliant or He'll find somebody else. But it's not going to be not get done. It'll get done. With or without me, it'll get done. We need a mind change. And the mind change is not more important or less important than the heart change. Because here's the problem: the mind will tell you that you don't need the heart change, or the mind will tell you that the heart change is only partial. The mind will have you focus on all kinds of things that change. Your mind will do what Peter did. Your mind will be sidetracked by the problems in life, the hardship, the headache, the anger, the loss, the sadness, and you'll think, yes, he's still there to pull you up. Yeah. Okay. Why take your eyes off though? Why take your eyes off? He is helping you walk on water. He is making Peter do the impossible. Realize he made Peter do the impossible. And water raging underneath his feet caused him to look away from the man causing him to do the impossible. Do you see how strong the mind can be if we let it? Peter was visually looking at Jesus, telling him to come. He was so adamant, call me, I'll come. Look at me, I can do it. You see, that was Peter's problem, is that he was always thinking that he could do it. And I think maybe for a minute he might have thought he was doing it, which is why he felt confident enough to look away. But why are you taking your eyes off the person who can help you do and do through you the impossible? Makes you wonder. Makes you wonder. Get that mind changed, people. Get that mind changed. Those verses have nothing to do with race. They have nothing to do with a life that is all yours. It has nothing to do with a people. It has everything to do with Him doing what He's got to do. I will make them. I will. I will. I will. I open the door. I'll make them come. I have seen your deeds. None of this has to do with an individual or a group. He does it. It's crazy. Anyway, um, on the morrow, I want to make sure I give you guys a lineup again because I may be taking Thursday off. I'm not sure yet. Um, Simply because I know that there are Thanksgiving plans being made for some people. I think that's this Thursday, isn't it? I think, right? Yeah, that's this Thursday. So tomorrow, being the 22nd, we will talk about doubting Thomas. And then on Wednesday, we have Job. So Thomas and then Job. Um, we'll talk about both. Then we'll decide on another day whether or not I'm going to do Thursday or not. Um, that will be that'll be the teller there. I haven't decided yet. Neither Corey nor I have decided that yet. So, in any case, thank you guys for tuning in. For those of you on Facebook, please make sure you smash that like button. And then for those of you who are wanting to, been led to, have prayed about it since the last time, and you feel so compelled or persuaded to, the first one's the Cash App. The second one is the PayPal. If you want to contribute to what I'm doing here, feel free to do that. This walk that we're on is going to be more difficult when we stop following the leader of the caravan. When you try and take a shortcut, you think you found an easier route, life becomes way more difficult. Stick with the man's plan. He's perfect. He knows what he's doing. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's not playing games. He knows what he's doing. Let him do what he's got to do. Stop getting in the way. Doubting Thomas in the morning. And we will talk more about exactly where that gets us. And until then, wisdom calls to you from the street. Please, 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 please find wisdom. Peace.
Hold tight the dreams, for if dreams die, rely on yourself and no way. Believe